All right, the first thing we're going to do is talk about how to get your fat quarter ready to make your first projects. When you go to the store, this is what we call a fat quarter. It's basically half a yard. It will usually come folded up in a nice little package like this. This is what you're going to make all of your projects out of. So in order to get it ready first, you're going to take the sticker off, and you're going to open it up, and you're going to press it flat. So here we're going to open this up. Make sure you get all of the sticker residue off. You don't want that to be in your project. Usually there's a little piece of cardboard. Go ahead and throw all of those away. So when you open it up, you're going to have a nice little piece of fabric. It's basically a half a yard cut in half down the selvage. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to press this, and I'm going to take you over to the iron and show you the proper way to press this. All right, here we are over at the iron. The first thing I would do is open up your fat quarter, lay it completely open, and then you're going to use the steam iron to just get all of those creases out. And because this is a steam iron, it has this really cool little button that will give you extra steam. You can see all of that. It will help you get it a lot flatter, a lot faster. I'm going to move this up a little bit. I'm going to press all those creases out. Now, in order to fold this correctly, you have to make sure that you're folding it with the 18 inches going this way and 22 inches going this way. Now, it might not be exact, but it's going to be pretty close to 18 inches going by 22 inches. In order to fold this the correct way, we're going to flip it over, and we're going to put the wrong sides together. So if you look closely at this fabric, you can see the right side, or the pretty side, the side you want showing, or the wrong side, which is sometimes we call the ugly side. We want to make sure that the wrong side is touching, and we're going to fold it in half so that the new measurement stays 18 inches down this edge, but now we're going to divide this in half to be about 11 inches. So in order to make sure that you've got this folded correctly, I would make sure, refer to your pattern, but also bring over a tape measure. And we're just going to eyeball and make sure, good, that's about 11 inches that way, and about 18 inches that way. So now we're going to press this crease into our fat quarter and make sure it's nice and flat. And that's all we have to do to make sure our fat quarter's pressed correctly. Just make sure that you double check the measurements. After it's folded in half with wrong sides touching, it'll measure 11 inches across the bottom and 18 inches up along the side. All right, the next step in the process is to get our pattern pieces ready. When you first come to class, you're going to get, obviously, your fat quarter. We're going to get that ready, and then you'll also get the pattern pieces. So there's a set of 3 pages that need to be cut out. You're basically just going to cut around the solid line, but please make sure that you use paper scissors. Do not use the fabric shears on the paper. It will dull them out, and they won't stay sharp for very long. So use paper scissors to cut around your pattern pieces, and as you can see, I've already got my pattern pieces cut out and pinned onto my fat quarter. Again, my fat quarter is folded in half with wrong sides touching. Now, as you pin on your pattern pieces, it's really important you pay attention to the pattern symbols that you'll see. The most important one is on the bookmark piece. You want to make sure that this symbol that says place on fold is on the folded edge. You're going to push it right up on that folded edge. And if you read carefully, it also says, do not cut this edge. If you cut that edge, you're going to have 2 pieces instead of 1, and we'll kind of have some problems. So please make sure you've got this symbol, the arrow with the double ends, pinned on the fold. The rest of them don't have a place on fold, so you're going to try to fit them on however you can. And in the pattern booklet, it has kind of a guideline or a template to show you where each piece fits best. So as you look at this, just make sure that everything is on the fabric, there's no pieces hanging over the edge, and especially this bookmark piece is placed on the fold. Another thing you're going to notice is the pinning. When you pin, you want to make sure that the pins are not hanging out over the edge of your pattern piece. Because if you have a pin and it's sticking out over the edge, when you come to cut past it, it's going to run over the pin and you might damage the shears. You'll also notice I don't have very many pins on each piece. I basically have 1 per side. When you pin, you just need to make sure that it's pinned in place. You don't need to put pin, 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 pin. Otherwise, it'll start to warp and bubble up your fabric and you won't get a clean cut. So as you pin, make sure your pins are inside, and then make sure that they're not hanging over the edge and that you don't have very many pins. All right, the next step is to now cut out our pattern pieces. So we're going to use our fabric shears. Each one of you have a pair in your drawer. Please try to be careful not to cut onto the paper. As you cut, you're going to keep it flat against the table, and you're just going to cut right along the edge. Now remember, especially on this bookmark piece, we're only going to cut these 3 edges. Do not cut the folded edge. So we're going to cut around each of these pieces, and then we'll do the next step. All right, now that these are all cut out, we're going to keep the pins in them until a little bit later. All of this extra, you can keep it if you want, but it can go in the garbage. Don't put these little tiny ones in the scrap bin because we can't really use those for anything. But some of these bigger pieces you could probably put in the scrap bin. So either put the rest of this in the garbage or the scrap bin. All right, a couple of our pattern pieces have some markings that we need to transfer. So we're looking at the cord keeper and the thread saver pouch. And if you read the pattern piece, it says transfer these markings. And there's 2 little dots right here. We need to transfer those dots and these dots to the wrong side of our pattern pieces. There's a couple different ways we can do that. The best way that I would recommend is just to use a marking pen or a marking pencil. So these are in the supply cupboard, and there's a variety of different colors. The ones that have the cap on them, the ones that are these ones, they actually disappear with heat. So you do have to be a little bit careful that you don't iron over these markings, but these ones are really nice because they give a really sharp mark. You can see it really well. This blue one, these blue pens are water soluble, so they erase with water. So you can iron over them and they won't disappear, but if you get them wet, they will disappear. So sometimes you have to be careful with the steam. We've also got some of these pencils. And these are really good. They don't wash out as well, but because we're putting these on the wrong side of fabric, you should be okay. So basically decide whichever marking tool you'd like to use, and we're going to transfer the markings. So in order to do that, you don't want to take the pattern piece completely off the fabric, but you do need to remove the pin where the markings are. So I'm going to take this pin out, and I'm going to open my fabric to the wrong side. And I'm basically going to kind of just use my finger to hold where that first mark is, and then I'm going to take one of my marking pens, and I'm going to go underneath the mark and draw in that marking. Now the blue ones do take a little while to kind of show up a little bit, so if you don't see it right at first, it will darken over time. So then I'm going to move over to my next one, and I'm going to mark on the wrong side, and you only need to do one piece. You only need to worry about doing one piece, not both of them. So I'm going to do a big circle there and a big circle there, and that will help me later on. If you can't see that color, try different colors until you get one that you can see. There's also some white pencils up there if you can't see any of the colors. So we're going to do the same thing with this one. I'm going to take the pin out, and I'm going to transfer those markings to the wrong side of my fabric. Now I'm ready to go. I would recommend that you keep the paper pattern pieces on your fabric until you get to that specific project. So for example, keep this paper on the cord keeper until you're actually making the cord keeper. That way you'll know what piece is what piece. They won't get as lost. I would just keep the paper on the patterns until you're ready to start sewing them. A couple of other supplies you're going to need for these projects include you're going to need an elastic, like a hair tie elastic. You're going to need 2 buttons. These buttons do need to have holes in them, so if you get through the button bin and you find one that's malformed or misshapen or doesn't have holes, choose a different one that has holes in the buttons. You're going to need a piece of Velcro, the soft side and the sticky side, about 2 inches long. You're going to need a key ring and a zipper for your zipper pouch. You'll also get a Ziploc bag. I would recommend after you pick all of this up that you keep everything in the Ziploc bag until you're ready to use it. That way things won't get lost. You'll know whose is whose. Your partner won't accidentally take yours. So I would keep everything in a Ziploc bag until you're ready to use it.